Okay.
Sí.
Can you see my screen all right?
Yes.
Okay. There is a bit of echo, but I don't know if it's on my side or yours. Okay. So shall I go ahead then? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So thank you, Sosoleto, for the introduction. It is very thought-provoking and made me think, it's like, did we answer all the questions that you have when we started that project? And thank you, everyone, for attending this exciting workshop. It has been a pleasure working in the playbook with the Vukuzi and Sosoleto and Nontokonzo, Masakani and data.org. So today I'm going to talk not precisely on the book, but some of the things that came out from these discussions, and I thought would be really nice to bring it on, because it also helps in defining perhaps how we see the participation from the language community in this bigger conversation about language technologies. So the title of my talk today is like the do's, don'ts, and gray areas of community participation in building language technologies. But when I talk about community here, I'm talking about perhaps indigenous communities, the communities that own the languages, and not the scientific communities that deal with it. But we'll see how that play out. So a bit of introduction. So this is my workplace. I work in the middle pyramid that's called Informatics Research Institute, which is an institute, a bigger of a part of a bigger science park called City of Scientific Research and Technology Applications. And it's an interdisciplinary entity that is basically located near some of the universities in Alexandria, and it's meant to promote and encourage researchers from different disciplines to work together. Like we have biology, genetics, arid lands, nanotechnologies, all that stuff. And of course, it's like everyone is looking at us, people who work with technology and computer science, and thinking how we might help. So I got my bachelor and master's from Egypt, Alexandria University, then a PhD from Virginia Tech. Then I came back to Egypt. Then I had spent some time in UK as a postdoctor, came back to Egypt, and then coming here in the UK for a little bit of a while. But these going and coming is always like a great opportunity to see your culture and others' culture from the inside and the outside at the same time. So you're kind of being insider and outsider, and that give you some time to think about what is cross-culture things and how culture affects how we design technology. So in between my travels, I got involved in two grassroots communities. One is called Arab HCI. HCI stands for Human Computer Interaction, which is my area of expertise. I'll explain in a bit. And the other one is called African Computer Human Interaction. And both communities came based on this idea. It's like, so how we don't see ourselves represented and our values represented in Western technologies, and what could we do to bring our own selves in technology design? When I say our own self, it is more than technology translation. So it's much more than I have a translated interface. It's that how this interface represents my values, my philosophies, my way of doing things. So human-computer interaction, the classic or the canonical definition, is a discipline that is really located among other disciplines. So it's an interdisciplinary area. It has to do with the design, evaluation, and implementation of any interactive system, any system that we interact with, starting from personal devices like your mobile desktop devices, maybe the ATM machines, etc., etc., any interactive system. And it really sits between like four blocks. Like there is the science, how people understand technology, how they deal with it, and psychology. What's the mental model for dealing with technology. It also relates to art, the emotional connection that we build
Shaimaa?
with technologies.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Your slides are not changing.
All right. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So you're still at the title slide.
Yeah, we're at the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so these sometimes happen in Zoom, and I don't have a fix for it except for working from inside the.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all right. Yeah. Okay. So going quickly. So this is where I work. And this is where the current slide. So HCI it tries to connect knowledge from cognitive science to art and engineering, how the system is built, but also design. And design is kind of like, think of it as the one who orchestrates the symphony of creating a technology, because it focuses on the problem, asking why this problem is important for this user, what the user will get out of it, how we reach this point where the users benefit from it. So what I do in HCI and what my focus is, and many of my colleagues in the African HCI community, is particularly challenging that we take a technology that is developed in the West and then dump it or throw it or just change the interface, translate the interface and give it to the users in our countries and communities and ask them to work with it. Because every design is built in an assumption or a certain worldview of things. And what we wanted to do is like to design from within our African culture context. We want to design technologies that is based on our needs, but also based on our philosophies. And the approach we take for this is more like a participatory design. So meaning that we need to sit with the users, they become part of what we create, we exchange ideas, we learn from them and they learn from us, and we bring things together. Also, we have to be critical in the sense that like I said, we don't really adopt anything not everything comes from the West is bad. It's just the idea we need to think about. Does it work for us? Does it carry an assumption that does not hold in our countries? So that's why we also have what we said is like a decolonial kind of tendency or thinking towards the technologies that we do. Some of the projects is I worked with educational technologies in the rural schools. So just to give an example, so a lot of Western technologies have promoted this idea that if you give a technology to educate the children, like one tablet or one laptop per child, which was a big project that promoted like in the West as the way to get everyone educated in developed countries. And that's how the students will benefit. We found these initiatives always fail because they don't count for the infrastructure. Even in Egypt, we have this thing like most recently, they still brought like tablets for everyone, but it has many challenges because, for instance, if you distribute these tablets for students who are in impoverished areas, and then this tablet is broken, they can't like fix a tablet, or they don't have internet connection to work all the time on the tablet kind of thing. So what we did, we went to one of the schools, we explored different ways where we can create a technology that is low in cost and also can be deployed and maintained by the school itself. And it developed based on the gaming idea. So the games brings so much fun to the students. It's not just delivering the educational material, but also compensate for that fun, and also give feedback, because some of these students, their parents cannot give them feedback on their homework. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do. When we design a technology, we really look at the context. Similarly, we had a digital heritage documentation in the rural community near my institute, which is focused on intangible heritage. That's basically the recipes, the medicines, I mean, the language the Bedouins hold, and it's fading over time because it's not practiced by the newer generation. On the technical, a little bit on the technical level, I have worked with the Arabic in natural language processing projects, and you might be surprised thinking that Arabic is a language spoken by many like 1 billion, I think, users or something, but then it's still low in the resources that enable us to have good language models or language or artificial intelligence models to work in applications. And progressively, I like developed an interest in the impact of how culture, design, and AI could play together in a plural way. So this is a website of the latest African HCI conference, in which we had the pleasure of hosting Vukuzi as our one of our keynotes. And this is a part of our efforts to reach out to different scientific communities, because we don't believe that having something like a language technology is owned by one discipline. It's at an intersection and collaboration between language professionals, communities who speak the language, AI people, and HCI people. So I'm going to start by, so this is the takeaways I want you to take from my talk, and then I'll break them down. So the main takeaways, and the reason I started putting my takeaways earlier in my presentation is like, okay, this is something that I would like to sit at the back of your head as you're listening to what comes next. So perhaps it helps with the delivery of the examples I'm going to explain. So basically, what I'm trying to say in this presentation is like, so when we work with the community, well, the main thing that we need to keep in mind is, first of all, we're building a relationship. It's not a transaction. We're not taking data from them and giving them a technology. It's a relationship. And it's how strong is this relationship is what will carry the technology forward, like for the future. The second, hopefully, takeaway from this presentation is like, when we think also of technology, like a language technology, we need to think of our local ecosystem that supports this technology. It's not just a computing structure, it's the data and the community. It's also how we do fund, what policies that we have, how we prioritize our research in our research panels and council. It's all of this that will create a good or bad ecosystem for these technologies. The third point is like accountability, to whom researchers are accountable when they design this technology. We usually are accountable to many stakeholders, like we're accountable to the people who give us fund, we're accountable to the university, but also I would like to stress that we're accountable to the communities with whom we work. And then, of course, there is a challenge. Technology landscape moves a lot faster than changing a policy or putting a funding structure, or like the relationship with building a good relationship with the community. So this is something we need. And this is very unique to where we sit in Africa. So we need to think of like, so how we close this time gap, and what kind of things that we could do as researchers to also raise the alarm that we need to work perhaps a little bit faster in terms of developing our ecosystems. Some of the stats, and I'm sure like Vakuzim might correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's like we have 2,000 plus African languages spoken by 1 billion almost users, and also many African users speak more than one language. Like even in Egypt, we have like Arabic and English slash. That's part of the colonial heritage that we inherited, and not many. I think it's only like 50 something languages are represented in AI models. So we have a lot of users here are not represented in AI technologies. Are these like in AI, does it have like important applications? I think yes, because especially when we think about text to speech and speech text. So you have the ability to, in education, for instance, to have transcription in different language. You can have access to lectures and things on YouTube in your own local language. You also, when you upload your local things that people can understand what you're saying, understand your contribution, and you'll be more comfortable talking in your local language. There are like potential applications like getting agriculture advice, healthcare advice by having bots that speaks to people who live in rural areas, which is the case in many places, like almost every country in Africa, that people are they don't have access in rural areas, do not have consistent access to services like health and education services. So the oral, the fact, just the fact that in Africa, like the languages are majorly oral, means it's like so. There is so much potential if we can develop like speech models that are really good. And of course, it's like everyone talking about Gen AI and LLMs and things like that. So to have this access, and these are mainly in English. I don't know how they perform in African language. I know that they don't perform very well in Arabic, and sometimes you have to be a little bit of a mix of advanced technology user plus also advanced in English. So you get the benefits everyone talks about in terms of like helping you with brainstorming, developing a strategy, etc., etc. So really what we have here is like the stages. So how do we reach that technology stages? Like, so first we need, for the current AI to work, we need to collect what we call data sets, and then we build AI models, and then we build applications. HCI usually comes in the application side, but ideally it should come from the beginning, because it also could guide and help with defining the kind of data sets that we have, and also advising on the kind of models that we have. It's like this collaboration between technical AI is sometimes really helpful in defining the scope of the applications that we'll find later on. So I'm going to focus on the part is like, so where are the community, the language, the people who speak the language sits within this realm of data sets, building models and applications. And actually they should be there throughout. This is the ideal thing. But we don't necessarily have the ideal thing because of many limitations. Some of them are structural limitations, like how we are funded as researchers. But let's talk in a bit of stories or scenarios. So in these scenarios, I'm going to focus on community participation. This is photos from my participation in the Bedouin rural communities in Egypt. And I emphasized on the tent that we sat in, because when you participate with the community, you have to participate on their terms, on their territory, if must be, and also looking at what they offer, not just as data. What they offer is much more. You have to really understand how this community thinks, how they live, what they value, and why, in order for you like to be able to think about what kind of data that we need, what kind of models that we need, what kind of applications that we need. So I've chosen to have like around six stories, where in each of the story it exemplify a scenario that we face as researcher almost every day when we try to develop one of these language technologies. And we have to make some choices. Sometimes we have to make to balance things out. But I put a structure as like, so this is the things that you really shouldn't do, the don'ts, and these are the things that you really think about doing, and others are gray area when you try to kind of work your way out. And every one of the stories have like is linked to one of the issues that I think really important to discuss. So the first one is a scenario that talks about data sovereignty and data governance, where really what we see is someone, a group of researchers parachuting in, collecting, compensating the community members, collect some sort of data sets. They say afterwards this data set goes to X university in the West, or X entity in the West, or maybe still in Africa, and they leave and they publish something called, we collected these data sets, our models now are represents like Africa, this African language is now included in our model. Really, this is the worst thing that anyone can do to a community. The participation of the community here is more like you're mining them. So you're kind of taking something out of them, and they have zero ownership. They have zero governance. They don't even know what are you going to do like next with this. So this is very, in decolonial terms, like extractive practice. And we try to stay away from this extractive practice. So for instance, in this particular case about where the data goes and who governs the data, we need to communicate with the technology, build a good relationship with the community. And then we have a data governance board when the community itself decides what goes outside, what stays inside. Some of the communities, like the Maori community in New Zealand, I think they prefer to have their own data, their own language preserved on their own servers. So it's the case, it's not one size fits all. Every case is different, and that's why the involvement of the community in equal relationship, on equal footing, negotiation should happen about the data, where the data goes, what will happen next, etc. The other thing that could happen here is like, which is even worse, is like this data sets is put open source without permission from the community, just because the funder obliged the researchers to put their data open source, because that will encourage other scientific communities to build language models, which is fantastic. But does the community approve it? So I think there is here an opportunity to, I don't know if there are current policies address this or not, but this is an opportunity because if we want our language, African languages represented in models, and we work to encourage this, we need to have that kind of policy infrastructure in place. So a second story or scenario digs a little bit deeper into what the community will get out, what's in it for that community from participation in your data collection. So you go in, you compensate, maybe you tell them, oh yes, now you're going to be a co-author on my academic paper because you've written this paper with me, which is great practice, by the way. Or I'm going to give you like gift cards for your time that you spend giving me this data, recording this data, so I build my models, etc., etc. All of these, like, in themselves are fantastic, but short term and doesn't address the bigger questions, like, so what's in it for the community? So first of all, in good practice, you should have like professional wages for people, but you might also want to give them something more. Like, so one of the things you're taking this to develop a computing infrastructure. Why don't you help them also build their computing resources? Maybe do capacity building workshops, maybe give them some accounts so they can improve their access to technology in general. Some scholarships maybe to help this community build, because for a language technology to live it has to be supported by the community who uses this language, which means it's like you need capacities within these communities should they choose to digitize their language. And I'm here emphasizing it's also a community choice to digitize your language and join this AI application areas or not. There is a little bit of a gray area here. That is, okay, so you've collected the data, you've been acting very fair with the community, you help them with other technologies, but the data was put open source somewhere. Over time, models were built upon this collected data. Does the community have access to it? Now it's built on their like raw material, so to speak. If they don't, then we haven't closed the loop really, because we excluded them from access to the technology and we've taken the models. And maybe it's not like a precise cut, like a 0 or 1, or maybe some of them and not all of them. So there is really something to be done here around if you're collecting data from one place, the overall benefit from the models we created based on this data should also go to this place beyond just the compensation on the short term. And then this leads us to the infrastructure question. Is like, so yes, we collect the data, we left the community, we give them access to some of the features of the model, but this access expires after a while. Not for any reason, because it's like the community infrastructure is like degraded, they don't have money to renew the subscription or any of these reasons. So what is the sustainability plan? When we go to the community, we need to have in mind and discuss with them sustainability plans for having technology within this community. This is not specific to language technologies, by the way, but it's more apparent because in language technologies, the community has this something that we wanted from them. So here comes the role of other NGOs or local universities, where they can provide some computing infrastructure which they can afford maintaining it and make it available to the community. So this is also a research opportunity when we deviate away from just having our AI deployed in expensive infrastructure to work on like how we make it available on lower end devices or devices that doesn't cost too much. Then moving along, so also here talking more at the application level and not the data level. So we need some sort of like partnership in creation. So the bad scenario here is you have a student, a university, maybe you will in this university, they decided to help the fishermen like next to them, and they build an app X, which at the end of the day, the community doesn't use it. That's where we need partnership. So in order to develop an app, you need to involve the community from what we say like day zero. They decide what they need. So maybe they don't want text to speech. Maybe they simply need something to help with the weather prediction. Maybe they need a different kind of AI model all along. So and this is very important. Is like sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs or like student competition, they come up with brilliant ideas, but if these ideas are not grounded in what the community needs, then it's not going to be used. We're going to celebrate them as they develop the language, but that's only on their own benefit and not for the benefit of the community. So we need to have a partnership in place with the community to get their opinions, feedback, what is exactly they need from this technology or that technology, or how they see technology could help them in X, Y, or Z. And of course, sometimes it's like community needs are very specialized, meaning that you're going to spend a lot of time to help them with this small, it's not small, it's like this local problem who will not benefit anyone else. And then your funder comes and says like, oh yeah, but I want this technology that you're built to be, I want to be able to scale it. Then I won't fund this project because it's not scalable. So this is again like an opportunity to discuss. It's like, so big or small, local or scalable, is we need to discuss the boundaries between this area and how we give priorities to the needs of our communities, even when they are very specialized. And then again, comes with we're hungry for community participation as researchers. We learned that this is a good practice. We're trying to do our best doing it, but also there is what we call participation fatigue. So we come on this community on a tight schedule. We have full day workshops. We want them to participate, give us all their energy, because that's the time we allocated in the research fund schedule to get the data that we need or to get the information that we need. And in our minds, we're thinking we're helping them, but they can get fatigued. They have other things to do and attend to. So really, it's good practice to manage how we meet the community when and where they are ready. And sometimes they participate on their term. So they might participate by sending, for instance, WhatsApp notes instead of having longer workshops. But then also there comes the gray areas. Like, so sometimes if we really meet the community needs, that means we're going to spend a lot of time, more than anyone could afford based on this funding, or maybe it's going to create a lot more work for us because we're traveling more, or because we're receiving a lot of distributed WhatsApp voice notes that we need to kind of put together and synthesize. So that's a gray area, and we really need to work around our funding structures to allow more time. So our urgency of time doesn't mean that the community should be as urgent as we do. Usually we need actually time to build a good relationship and build trust with the community. And over time, things would improve. But time is really a precious thing that most funders don't have. Last but not least is what we call, so how we evaluate we develop the app, we collect the data sets, we develop the apps, how we evaluate what we think what is the outcomes of our research. And I really like this photo because the women are really not happy with the technology that they are looking at. So we can say it's like we collected a very large data set from this community. Our algorithmic accuracy has a lot improved. Our benchmark performances are fantastic. But then the question is like, does the community use what you created? Does it really help them in reaching this application goal, or why they participated with you in this problem, the dream that they have from participation? Did they accomplish their dreams? So really, and many times the funds ending by the time we finish the technology, but really the success is based on how people will adopt this technology. And it's in itself, it's a process where we might as well change a lot of what it is we designed based on the actual use of the users. So again, time here is critical. Is like, so we need to look at the whole process and not just that we achieved our goals, academic goals, from participation with the community. So taking these all 6 scenarios, there are other more that we could talk about, but going back to the takeaways was talking about. So really what we develop here when we go to a community, the main thing that we develop with them is a relationship based on trust, based on transparency, based on mutual learning. We learn from them. We need to acknowledge that we actually learn through this process, and we're not the people holding all the advanced or modern knowledge that we're going to deploy to them. They have been already living their lives and adopting in many ways. Yes, we carry something that they could benefit them, but if it's not adopted by them, then we've done nothing. Just advancing our academic career. So really, we need to look at our research as building a relationship with a community, and this relationship would carry a lot of negotiations. Sometimes communities work for free if they if they see the benefit from what we're doing. And I'm not encouraging working for free, but I'm saying is like, if they are enthusiastic, things will be done in a much better way. We need to think about our local ecosystem. Yes, we think about data sets, models, applications as distributed and things like isolated things, but what we really need to start thinking about, what is the local ecosystem for building these technologies and sustaining them over time? What policies that we need, what funding structures that we need, what research priorities, maybe that we prioritize the low-cost hardware, investing in people researching how to use low-cost hardware instead of investing of large computing resources. Maybe we invest in having funding that stays for longer with the community. Maybe like the minimum should be like 3 years or something. We need to start thinking about changing the local ecosystem to reap the benefit from the advancement that we have in AI and language as well. And we need to ask ourselves about accountability and how we're accountable to the communities that with whom we work. Again, emphasizing that time is always the thing that we don't have, and it's really one of the things that we need to kind of struggle to think is like, so we need more time to build things in our own way. The technology is moving faster, so this is always going to be a challenge, and that's something for us to think about. Thank you. I don't know if we have time for questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Prof. Shaimaa.
Should be off. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Let me just double check. Sorry, guys, just grab
Okay. Oh no. I think we need the buckets of water. Because wow. Maybe switch one of the table and the table. Thank you so much, Prof. Shaimaa, for the wonderful presentation at Keynote Address. Thought-provoking. Yeah, one thing that stuck with me was accountability. How do we account for building human language technologies? So I will definitely make time for a few questions. If anyone in the room has questions for Prof. Shaimaa, please let's go ahead and ask the questions. But what I wanted to say is, idiom of the day is yeah, because technology and humans yes, we work together, but there will be glitches, I guess. So, re a leboga. If anyone has questions, please let's go ahead and ask Prof. Dipuchisho? Okay.
Maybe I have one, sorry.
Yeah.
Prof spoke about the option of having a longer funding structure with the community.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to find out from Prof. How is that established?
Maybe restart?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
right. Yeah.
So Prof, you spoke about the possibility of a 3-year funding structure, in a sense, or in a way of giving back to the community. How is that normally structured? How do you engage with the community to establish that enthusiasm, as you put it, for the 3-year duration? And should you go back and require more data from the community? Do you then establish another extension, or do you look at other avenues of development? I think I'd just be very interested in how that functions, and if there's any examples of a community that has grown in that sense, that would be great.
Another question?
Should maybe have the next question of Prof can just engage. What should we do?
Maybe one more question.
One more question perhaps in the room?
Okay.
Yes.
Sweet.
Greetings, Prof. So how do you work with communities that are resistant to change? Because not all communities will want to engage with technology. So what do you do when you encounter a community that is resistant with change? Thank you.
Yeah, Shaimaa, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start from the second question, because I think it's important that we know the community perspective in terms of participating or not participating in a language technology. So it's our duty to let them know perhaps what technology could offer to them. And then I think that the real question is why they don't want to participate in something like that. So maybe they will feel that we're exploiting the language. Maybe they want their language to stay with them and not be learned by someone else. Maybe parts of this language should be private, and then we could really negotiate here is so, because if we see, for instance, this technology is important because we want this community to have more access to health services or e-commerce services, or we see a benefit from there. So then we can tell them, because they don't know all the technical background that we have. So things like, yes, we can make some of these services or languages, the part of your language is private only for your community and not accessible to others. This is something that could be done. When I worked with the Bedouin, they wanted only the people to access their app. It wasn't a language technology, it was more intangible heritage, but their language is part of that heritage, to be accessible through privacy, security questions that they develop, and they are the only ones who knows the answers to them. So by answering these questions, they could identify you as someone originally from this community, or someone is faking, for instance. So that's why we need a conversation with the community. It's not one shot. It's more like a conversation. And again, I'm going back to building a relationship. And actually, we build a relationship before even we write a grant proposal, moving to the second, the first question, because it's important to understand that this community have the willingness to participate. And a lot of these negotiations shouldn't be more like, yeah, we're bringing you technology, you're gonna participate. It should be more like specific and long term, and thinking through the stages. What will happen after we leave? What will happen like 5 years from conducting this project? What's in it for them? I think it's really important that we illustrate what's in it for them from their perspectives. It's like we need to understand this. Because otherwise there is no relationship. It's not just our agenda. It should be a joint agenda, not our agenda, not their agenda. It's something it's joint, and it's not just to exploit the funding that the funder could have. We really need to have something at the end, and feel that we contributed something to them, and they access that something that we contributed to, so they also like have accomplished their goals. So going back to the funding, when I said like 3 years, I said that it is just a suggestion, but because I see a lot of the funding that comes into shorter terms, and to collect data or work on a model, or have an application, like the funding focus on the application rather than the community. And because every work with the community would need time, because we need to set the schedules based on their own time. We need to set the outcomes based on what they need. And that doesn't always fit with what the funding agency have in mind. So in my view, you should be like talking at least about like 3 years of engagement with the community, so that it's also you are available after the delivering and making sure what you delivered is meaningful to them. We need, I think there is a work that could be done with the funding agencies, prioritizing the relationship with the community within the project. So this is, yes, we're going to work on maybe technical issues, but also equally important that we maintain that relationship with the community, so we don't disappear, for instance, and then come back a few years later saying, yeah, we built that model. So it's should be a long-term relationship with the community, and we need to start talking, maybe as researchers from different disciplines, write some guidelines as like how we think working with the community should be done, or even better is if it comes at the policy level. I don't know maybe you have these guidelines or policies in South Africa, but that's to protect the communities from feeling being exploited and extracted by us coming with our own schedules, our own timelines, and commitment to deliverables. Because as much as we are committed to the funders, we're also accountable to this community. So I'm not sure if that answers the first question, or if I missed some of the parts in it. Just a little, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Just to wrap up on the last part of the community building, community relationships, and also benefits, because we find that it's so complicated or complex to define what does the community stand to benefit in spaces of language digitization. I'm just a person who speaks Sepedi. You coming and you telling me you digitizing my language. What do I get? How can you define benefit? We actually sat down and said, how do you define benefit beyond monetary definitions? If I'm not getting money and you're a researcher, you getting money, you getting paid to do this work, and I'm not, what is it that I'm getting? So we also looked at issues of capacity building, like Prof mentioned, can we have a capacity exchange? You teach me your language, I teach you digitization skills. Is that a benefit enough for you? And also your language being available in digital spaces. And someone might say it's not beneficial, but you have to have those relationships with communities. And also, I mean, communities have been exploited. We need to be honest about that people have came, collected data, made decisions, didn't consult those communities, and then that was it. So I think Prof is just looking at how can we have sustainable relationships with communities. In the panel discussion, I think we're also going to touch on human infrastructure, because we can speak of public digital infrastructure, but who is maintaining that infrastructure when all that work is done? So building language communities, it looks at those issues. But moving ahead with our